At first glance, the evening seemed picture perfect. I felt accomplished and proud as I made my way to the grand dining hall, knowing I had spared no expense for tonight's extravagant event. A long table, covered in beautiful ivory linens, stretched out before me, its shimmering crystal glasses catching the light of the magnificent chandelier above. The air was heavy with the enticing aroma of roasted duck and aged wine. Amidst the mingling of soft laughter resonating from the lofty, elaborate ceilings, I had meticulously planned every aspect of this evening, naively thinking that those closest to me, including my brother Caleb, my wife Rachel, and our extended family, were basking in the glow of the pleasures I had provided. I felt a fleeting warmth in my heart as I took my seat at the table. But then, I had to step away for a crucial business call, a disruption I rationalized by telling myself that all my sacrifices were for our future. As I returned, I halted behind the thick velvet drapes at the side of the hall. The gentle rustle of the cloth and the quiet murmurs from the other room betrayed nothing until I heard the words that shattered my well-constructed illusion. Hidden in the shadows, I caught snatches of a conversation that would permanently alter the way I viewed the people I loved. "He's too ignorant to recognize I'm only with him for his money," came Rachel's airy chuckle, the very voice I had yearned to hear in moments of intimacy. The words ripped through me like a blade. Before I could absorb their meaning, Caleb's smug tone followed. "He's doing a terrific job taking care of my pregnancy." A flood of shock and misery broke over me as laughter erupted around the away table. Even my mother, who had always been my silent pillar of support, sighed and groaned. Honestly, I assumed he would have figured it out by now. In that moment, I felt the blood drain from my face. The wife I cherished, the brother I trusted, the family I believed in, they were laughing at my expense. I stood there, paralyzed by treachery, humiliated, my mind spinning. I could have stormed into that room, my wrath igniting a confrontation that would make them pay for their cruelty. I envisioned myself raising my voice, demanding an explanation, unleashing the hurt that had been locked inside me. But instead, I swallowed. My fury like a bitter pill, I kept my face an unreadable mask. If they thought I was naive to their betrayal, I would let them believe that. At that moment, I silently resolved to turn their lies against them. My heart pounded with a mix of sadness and cold calculation. I would not be the victim in their cruel game. Their laughter, their careless words, their betrayal. They had set in motion a series of events they could never have predicted. As I walked out from behind the drapes and rejoined the table, I vowed that this evening marked the end of my foolish indulgence. They had made the greatest mistake of their lives by underestimating me, and I was now ready to take back control. Wealth and allegiance, but by a hard-won freedom that was as much a part of me as the wounds of betrayal. I was not anticipating Caleb to come to my office that day. When the door opened, there he stood, no longer the proud man of our past, but a shattered figure in a worn-out jacket, his eyes full of remorse and fear. The office, usually a place of calm and peaceful control, suddenly felt charged with tension. I looked up from my desk, my heart stable, yet prepared for the encounter I had long anticipated. Caleb's face was haggard, his typical arrogance stripped away by the weight of his failures. "We made a mistake," he began, his voice cracking as he added, "We should have treated you better." His words hung in the air, harsh and desperate. I felt a mixture of sadness and resolution rise inside me. I had been waiting for this moment, a chance to face the man who had once been my brother, a man who now understood, too late, the cost of his betrayal. I leaned forward slowly, my tone measured as I answered, "Should have." The stillness spread between us for a long while, filled only by the soothing hum of the air conditioner and the distant sounds of the city. His eyes wandered away as he attempted to find the perfect words, but nothing arrived that could explain the years of deceit and the violence that had been perpetrated. "You don't regret what you did," I said gently, letting the truth settle in the room. "You regret getting caught." His face sank more as he tried to muster a retort, and I could feel his pride withering in front of me. I rose from my chair, each step deliberate, and narrowed the distance between us. "There it is," I whispered gently, my voice calm yet tinged with disappointment. "The real you. The man who once thought he could use me as a piece in your games." I paused, the seriousness of the moment weighing on us both. I had planned this encounter in my thoughts for so long, but now that it was here, every word felt heavy with history and consequence. "You need to leave." I proceeded, not with rage, but with the quiet authority of someone who had recovered his life. Caleb sought to speak, his voice cracking with a mixture of sorrow and rage, yet I held up a hand to hush him. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming clarity. All the years of pain, all the betrayal had led to this ultimate reckoning. I had given my all, my faith, my love, my fortune, and had been met with nothing but selfishness and greed. I had based my life on providing for those I cared about, and suddenly I saw that they had only ever considered me a resource. The confrontation was not about revenge, nor was it a moment of releasing rage. It was the climax of a lengthy journey, from being the naive spouse and brother to a man who finally recognized his true worth. As Caleb stood there, unable to meet my gaze, I felt both pity and relief. Pity for the man who had lost his way, and relief that I had finally taken a position. I could see the conflict in his eyes, a man torn between the remains of familial allegiance and the crushing weight of his own shame. For a long moment, we stood in silence. The tension in the room was palpable, every second echoing the end of an era. Whatever had once tied us together, I could sense that deep inside, Caleb realized his life had changed irreparably that day. He had been forced to confront the reality of his choices, and there was no turning back. With a final look, one that combined grief and resignation, he slowly backed towards the door. As the door closed behind him, I sank back into my chair and let myself breathe. The confrontation had been unavoidable, and now that it was over, I felt a bittersweet relief. I was not celebrating his defeat, but rather the restoration of my own dignity and self-respect. I knew that this was merely the beginning of a new chapter in my life, a phase where I would no longer be defined by the actions or the betrayal of others. I would move forward, forging a future that was completely mine, free from the ties of past deceptions. In that silent, lonely chamber, I recognized that sometimes the last confrontation is not a war to be won by violence or harsh words, but a silent, forceful statement of one's actual self. I had finally taken back control, and as I sat there in the dying light of the day, I felt a deep sense of serenity descend over me. A serenity born not from forgiveness, but from the strength to let go and move on.